Welcome to the 42nd edition of Women's Wrestling Weekly, the show. I am Kyle Klingman, joined by a man who knows he has an insanely high IQ. That is Scott Beck. And Scott, someone who has an insanely high wrestling IQ, tons of credentials, six-time world and Olympic champion, five-time NCAA championship coach, is back to coaching. John Smith, former head men's wrestling coach, is going to join the women's club team at Oklahoma State as a volunteer assistant. So how about that? John Smith coming back, going to help the girls team, and this better lead to a Division I product. That's all I have to say, Scott.
I have to believe that that's somehow in the works, some way, shape, or form. But that's great that Coach Smith is doing that. Obviously, in the discussion as the GOAT, 6 World Olympic titles in a row. Great competitor, he has walked the walk and helped with women. He 2017 Worlds in Paris, he coached as an assistant coach on that team. So he knows women's wrestling. Women have trained there. Jakara was there. Macy used to go there sometimes. So he knows the women's sport, and that's great to see him doing that. And hopefully that is part of a grand plan.
What this does more than anything is we just talk about name recognition. We talk about it almost every show that people know the University of Iowa, whether you know about the wrestling program, which you should. It's a world-class wrestling program. But people know about Oklahoma State, about the Power 4 program. So when people see this on social media, they're going to see John Smith, they're going to see Oklahoma State. That puts that club program into a new framework. It makes Oklahoma State girls wrestling more relevant. People are going to start thinking about that. And whether it's real or not, I think there's now the perception that it's going in that direction. Now you just have to get over the hump, and now you have John Smith behind it. It just adds to the whole flavor of what's going on in women's college wrestling.
Yeah, it just adds to people that aren't as familiar with women's wrestling, perhaps. It just puts a significant stamp of legitimacy and like an endorsement. It's like, he's giving a seal of approval. I mean, I think he'll be obviously a great asset to the athletes there. But again, I cannot believe that this would not be part of a sequence that is being planned.
You'd think so, and you'd also think this will help with, quote, recruiting to get girls to come down there. I'd think they'd see that and say, I want to be part of this. This is so cool, especially when you think of who they have there now.
As long as they know who he is, as opposed to Helena McCoy when she first met him and thought he was just a tour guide. But yeah, no, it's gonna add a lot, I would think.
Again, we go back to the name and how you perceive something. I had a coach recently tell me that the parent called Menlo, which is one of the best women's college wrestling programs of all time, probably in the top 5, called it a random D2 wrestling school. And this is how fast things move. Menlo won the 2024 NAIA championships, transitioning in Division II, but they're in that probationary period. So they were last season. They're going to be this season. They have to take 2 years off. That is difficult when you're trying to build a brand and you're trying to get momentum for the program to have 2 years off. I hope Menlo can recover from that. I think there's enough talent in California. I would have loved to seen them in the mix this year, but I'll tell you, it goes by fast, and I really think it's incumbent upon these coaches to educate the athletes in your program about who these programs are and who these women of wrestling are, because that's the educational piece that I think is on these head coaches right now.
Yeah, I mean, Menlo has, a long history of wrestling. Coach Jackie Davis, Tatiana Suarez,
Lee Allen
Carla
is the coach.
Esparza, full balance. Carla Esparza was a UFC champion. I mean, they have a long history that goes back a long way. They were one of the first kind of, I would argue, like non-kind of religious colleges that had wrestling. There was a bunch of Bible Belt kind of colleges, and then it was like Simon Fraser and like Menlo, and they had a great history. I mean, I think they'll overcome it for sure because they're in California, and any relevant people in California know who Menlo is, and they have a great history. But I don't love the 2-year probation. I'd love to better understand the thought process behind that. Okay, you want to do 1 year as a transition, but 2 years is just kind of seems rough, especially in like a sport that's just evolving so much right now that to take somebody out of the game for 2 years seems like a long time.
It really does, and especially for a program like that, that really can help women's college wrestling. So if you get Menlo this season, not saying they're going to compete with Iowa or maybe even McKendree or North Central at this point, Grand Valley State, but you get them in a situation to be successful, and we haven't done that. So I hope that we can get them into the fold quicker than normal because we need a program like that, especially in California. If we're talking about Tarleton State adding next season, and then hopefully you get Menlo into a competitive environment next season, I think we could be talking, but boy, it'd be nice to have them this year. We also have talked about the Campbellsville pipeline, Scott. Kaitlyn Pizzo, I knew she had gotten hired at Southern Oregon, but we talked about all the things that Lee Miracle has done to get Campbellsville to that point of successful athletes and successful coaches. Well, he has another one in Kaitlyn Pizzo, and so the names keep rolling. Lee
Yeah.
Miracle really must be doing something right to develop the coaching mentality. And I don't know if he's talking about that with them in practices and how they can get good, but really congratulations to Lee Miracle on making this happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a function of a couple of things. I mean, clearly he's instilling, I mean, obviously they already have it, but continuing to instill a passion, love for the sport where people want to continue to give back and participate in the sport as coaches. And I think it's also, it's a very structured program. He practices at the crack of dawn, literally 5 a.m., I think, or just some, ungodly hour. And he, has a system. He's very into his coaching system and breaking it down that way. So I think it's very easy for people to, not easy, but it may be easier to move on to the next step because it doesn't seem like he's just coaching. It's random. He's got a system and a process, and I think people can learn that system and adapt to it.
With that, though, it's got to be interesting for him because he's really trying to get himself back into relevance. Campbellsville fell off a little bit, and they were the program early on. As we talked about with Menlo, it was Menlo, Campbellsville, and now he's trying to reassert himself into the landscape. But it does take that year to year how you stay relevant. And I don't know if this does anything for Campbellsville that they have good coaches spreading around the country, but I don't know if that's going to do anything for recruiting for Lee. But clearly, if you say, I want to be into the coaching lane, Campbellsville, I would try to make that as a recruiting pitch for Lee Miracle.
I'm sure he will. I'm sure he does. But it just shows you though how the game is getting, just more and more competitive every year and harder. And for these schools, it's just very difficult to compete. They give he's NAIA, they have scholarships, but it just as the bigger names. Listen, there's some athletes that don't want to go to perhaps a big school or want to be the main draw, maybe the smaller school like that. Slower pace, more rural environment, So, everybody doesn't want to go to the biggest, fastest paced school in the city. But so I'm sure it has appeal, but, the landscape is just getting more competitive. But then again, the pool of athletes is getting deeper. And I'm not 100% sure. I mean, we still see some, prodigies and some of the best people are great. But, it's certainly, you can't argue that it's not getting deeper. You can maybe argue that the best of 10 years ago were as good as the best. So, you can have that discussion, but it clearly is a deeper talent pool as, to point to the numbers we were talking about last week from that guide. I mean, it's just so many more athletes to choose from.
But to drive home that educational piece, we're trying to get women's wrestling fans to be like Nathan Williams, who gives us feedback all the time. Nate Solorio, something about the name Nathan. They are in the
Thanks,
weeds.
guys.
They're in the weeds. They're listening. They're talking about it. They are following it. We want more of that. And with the internet age, you should never ask what a program's credentials are because it's at your fingertips. If you don't know about Life or Menlo or North Central McKendree, all you have to do is look it up, Scott.
To be honest with you, if I was a coach and somebody didn't know who some of these schools were, by definition, I wouldn't want to recruit them because it shows me they're not either a fanatic or just not aware of things. Like I want the junkie that follows the sport and has supported the family as well. I mean, so it kind of works both ways. But yeah, I mean, you and I have talked about it. We'd sit and wait for amateur wrestling news, comment. I'd wait, and then you get it and find out what happened in the Big Tens, 8 days ago, and I locked myself in the room and my bedroom and memorized the results. I mean, so I don't know if I would have ever left my house if we had the internet back
Yes.
then.
Same when I graduated high school, I would go back to the library just to check out amateur wrestling news because I didn't know where to get it and I didn't want to order it. So I would go back to look at it there. So, but you can fake it now though too. You can do a 4 hour crash course if you're a parent and say, I'm going to take 4 hours today. Here are the
Yeah.
programs that are good. My daughter's good. I'm going to learn as much as I can about these programs, and it's all accessible. All you got to do is go to the schedule, see where they went, and see what the results are, and you're going to see where direction where they're going to go. And every program is trying to promote its coach. So if you go to Ashley Flavin, if you go to Joe Norton, you go to Jason Mormon, if you go to Alexio Garcia, you're going to find out how good these coaches are. If you were the parent, you've had that situation, you're recruiting. What if it was volleyball? Do you think you would do that if you didn't know anything about it? And
And
that's
if
where
by the
we have to.
time if I had a son or daughter that
Yeah,
was good enough in any sport that they were serious that they want to do it in college,
correct.
and they were at that level to be recruited, I would know everything about it. Yeah.
So you would go back and do the homework. See, that's what I'm saying is that
That whole career I'd be following the sport and supporting them, helping them, learning about the sport, watching videos about it, the competition, 100%. But I'm a lunatic, so
but
but I
that
do that with anything. I'm like that with anything I'm passionate about. I'm gonna do my homework, or I'm a pretty intense guy. I don't love everything, but the things I like, I really like. And certainly for my kid, boy or girl, and I don't care what the sport is, whatever. It doesn't have to be a sport. I mean, I used to play Nancy Drew mystery games with my other daughter. Each one took 25 hours, and we did like 45 of them. So, I mean, I'd like, you can choose the parent whether you want to be part of your kids' lives. And you either have to connect with them or not. Right? I'm not trying to give parenting lessons, but yeah, I'd be a fanatic.
but it would be cool if coaches got on this, if they said, here's what we're going to do. Each athlete's going to get paired with a former college champion or a former champion, and you're going to get to know them. You're going to build a relationship with them and have some sort of an educational program with these athletes. I think that could benefit so much because then you can learn what did it take? What did all these pioneers do to get to this point? So there's not only just an educational experience, but there's a relational experience. So you have to talk and you have to interact and you get to know someone, and that can be lifelong. I don't know how much work that would take, but I think that would be a good idea to get that coaches doing something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is then you get involved in, potential bias and recruiting rules and all that kind of stuff, So I don't know how that works
Yeah.
logistically, but I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. At minimum, you could have a slideshow or at least have something that
Yeah.
you can talk about for 1 minute before practice. Say, Trisha Saunders, here's who she is, and here's something you need to know about
Yeah.
her.
No, I think they should do it. I mean, I think, you learn the history of the sport, but like many of my former, coaches would always talk about the great ones or, yeah, see, the problem is now, like, your coach can't just take you to a tournament in high school alone or to practice, a clinic or a couple of, there's all these rules and safe sport and this and that. So I don't even know if you're ever you can't even be in a room alone, I don't think. So like, in the old days, like you'd sit, whether you're just doing some work after practice or giving you a lift to a clinic, they're giving you a ride home. You talk about this stuff. They give you the history of the sport. They tell you about their career or they do or legend or other athletes from your school and what they did. Like my high school coach would talk about, Steve Hunt, who wrestled for the University of Iowa, and just talk about him and his father who was a coach. All this stuff. It's like everybody's so guarded now. You have to be so careful. Like you can't like really connect as human beings to share that stuff. So it's a little more difficult. Maybe in a group forum they could, but I think that micro bonding is just a lot harder.
With the transition into the NCAA, and now they have an official NAIA championship, I would guess that 99% of the current women's college wrestlers are not familiar with the WCWA and what that meant. I would guess that
I'd
they,
agree.
yeah,
I'd agree.
that they have no clue. If you say, hey, do you know what the WCWA and do you know what title Helen won four of, or Victoria Anthony, or Emily Two, or Kayla Miracle? I bet they wouldn't know.
I'd agree with
It's
you.
incumbent upon us, and this
It
comes
is.
this comes from Christian Flavin at Life. You have to get this on social media because that's where these athletes live. And so if you can get that out there
Absolutely.
and more, you can scroll through, and it's just got to be repetition. And they've got to be able to see that. So it's
Yeah, well,
incumbent upon
people
us.
see. Yeah, I mean, there's so much. I mean, the thing about social media, right? And the internet. There's infinite content, but there's also infinite distractions. So and the attention span of most teenagers nowadays is like that of a flea. So you better keep them engaged in something that really interests them in the way it's presented. But if you're not savvy at that, you lost your window. You know, you're just out quickly. I mean, it's has pros and cons.
Scott, the U20 World Championships are live on Flow August 19th through the 22nd. I hope everyone will watch. From where I sit, if you want to rank the World Championships in order of prestige, I'm not saying degree of difficulty. I'd say, of course, the Senior World Championships number one, but I put U20s from a prestige point of view as number two because you're just getting into that senior type level. U23 is a mixed bag because it's a senior level tournament, but you get some of the seniors
Some
going
countries
into it.
send, some don't, and it's
Yeah.
hit or miss depending on weight class.
Th-
Really, it
This
could be harder, just as hard as the seniors, or it could be relatively easy.
this year stepping up to the plate. So I will not be making as bold of a prediction as you did last time about the U17s, where you said we have a damn good team. I think we have a good team, but I'm holding some reservation here because I'm not quite sure how good of a team. I think there's some potential. I think there's some women that we saw do decently well at the senior level. I think Audrey Jimenez is going to be fun to watch, but is this her opportunity to finally crack through and win a gold medal? She has three age level silvers and one age level bronze. She's got some tough competition in the bracket, as 50 kilograms always will. She has 2023 U17 World Champion Rinka Ogawa in the bracket, so we don't know where that will be. As with everything, seeding matters, draws matter, but I think this is going to be a litmus test for Jimenez going into the Senior Worlds.
Yeah, I think we'll see. You know, I mean, I think we have an idea where she is. I'd say, first of all, I agree. You know, this tournament, it's a legitimate tournament because it is not uncommon. I mean, it's not common, but it happens that people win U20s and Senior Worlds in the same year. So it's the first time you can compete as a senior. You have to be U20 eligible. So we saw that in the case of, you know, Amit Elor. Japan's done it a bunch of times. Russians have done it. It happens. So you're going to have some hammers. But it's also still there's a lot of athletes that maybe didn't compete in cadet worlds or you know U17s or maybe are just really hitting their path and catching on. So there's a lot of unknowns. It's a very like I looked through. I know a few of the names in a couple of the weight classes, not many. So, but you look at the credentials, and I mean, you can never. I mean, first of all, I would say just for the team, I think we have a good team. A lot of these athletes do not have international experience or experience in world championships. So this will be a litmus test. I think there's some, you know, some seasoned athletes, there's some less experienced ones. Obviously, Jimenez is one of the very seasoned ones. She's competed, as you said, a bunch of times in world level tournaments and done very well. You know, you can never, she certainly, in my opinion, will be contend. I mean, first of all, I'll say Japan is a very good team. So it's going to be tough to beat Japan. You just look up and down the credentials of this team. They're going to be. This will be a more competitive Japanese team than the U17 team. And I think relative age group adjusted, our U17 team is better than our U20 team. So, you know, could we contend? Yes, I guess, but it's going to be difficult. Just being straight. Jimenez, you know, you can never. She will obviously, I believe, contend for a title. It's very hard, but you know, if you cadet world champ from Japan in your weight class, you know she's going to be good. So I think Jimenez can go with anybody. I think she'll be in the mix, and we'll see who else is there. I don't know the names, but I'd expect her to do very well, and we'll have a good litmus test. And I don't really know how good Ogawa is. You know, is she prodigy good? I don't know. She's obviously very good as a U17 world champ, but we'll see.
Let's go back to what you said after the U17 World Championships. The United States placed second behind India and ahead of Japan. You said if this is Japan's best team, we've passed Japan. What are we going to get out of this U20 World Championships? When we get done, are we going to say something as bold, or are you going to say something as bold?
I think it's unlikely I'm going to make a bold. I think that's at the youngest age we may have caught them. We don't know if that's their best team or not. At this age, we probably aren't have not. At the U20 age, and we haven't caught him yet. So I don't know if I'll be making a bold statement. I mean, I think we have some really good wrestlers. I mean, we'll go through it, but we have world medalists, we have some seasoned people, and we have some inexperienced people. But I think I don't know if we'll see. Maybe they'll surprise me and win the tournament, and I'll make a really bold statement. But yet to be determined.
I can't wait to watch Eversest Leydecker compete. She reached Final X as a junior in high school. She didn't wrestle at the U17 World Championships last year because of some safety concerns going to that tournament. She, along with three other girls, opted out of going to the tournament. So we get to see Eversest Leydecker in her first U20 World Championships. I just feel so good about what she can do because if she gets down, I'm not as worried as I would be as someone else.
She can score points. She's never out. She keeps improving. I mean, in my opinion, I mean, I'll make a bold statement with her. She's a title contender in this tournament, and I'm expecting really good things. I mean, Crystal Rodriguez was the U20 World Champ. Leydecker gave her, a very good test and was very competitive with her. Was down in some matches, came back. I would expect. I don't know the names in the bracket, so I can't make an intelligent statement about it. But I know I've watched Leydecker a lot. I know how she trains. I know who she trains with. I know she'll be prepared, and I know she's very composed. So I don't want to put like pressure on her. I'm going to say she's definitely winning a title, but she will. We'll see how I'd expect good things from her, and she's very consistent too, and she's never out of a match, as you said. So, it'll be a good benchmark to see where she is. But she's one of our top athletes on this team, and I like watching her wrestle, so I'm looking forward to seeing her in action.
And we know how good Jasmine Robinson is. She's a returning U20 World Champion. I think she just has to do what she does, stay offensive, get to her shots. If you get behind her, that's going to be difficult because she does have the explosion and a lot of great tools on the mat. I just think she has to just do what she does, and I think she can repeat this year.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'd expect her to contend for a title. I mean, she's got the style. You can't bring in that many partners that mimic that style. It's just a very athletic, explosive style. She can score points, very physical and very technical. So yeah, I mean, that's another one of her big names, and high expectations from her. And, another one that's fun to watch wrestle, especially when she goes in those flurries where she opens up. She's really, really fun to watch.
Can you imagine being Naomi Simon with the workout partners you have, Macy Kilty, Kennedy Blades, Kylie Welker, all the 207-pounders in the Iowa room? This is probably a little bit of a break for her coming to the U20 World Championships.
It's a picnic compared, yeah.
It's
a great mentality, though. Imagine that when you walk on the mat and your coach can say to you, like literally, everybody that you wrestle every day is better than everyone here that's in your weight. Go and just, do your thing. It's easier than practice. I mean, I'm sure she gets pounded on, but I'm sure she holds her own at times. But, the names we're talking about are, world and champs and medalists. So it's good to, sometimes we'll see. I mean, I don't want to try to put too much pressure on an athlete, but, you've wrestled the best in the world every day. So I think it's her time to show what she can do out there.
I'm excited about the 1, 2, 3, 4 punch of Aubrey Krazer, Haylie Jaffe, Daniella Nugent, and Jardyn Fouse. They were the ones that wrestled at the Grand Prix of Spain and all won medals. It was Aubrey Krazer that got the gold medal, and we felt high about her and what she can do. But I'll be interested to see how that translates to the U20 World Championships and how that experience leads into what they can do here.
Yeah, I mean, at the ranking series, I mean, she beat world medalist Hui from Norway. She beat some really good people. So, on one hand, I have high expectations, and I think they were all really impressive, and she's really, really good. She's in a very difficult weight class. There's Anishi from Japan is very tough. She's a world champion, and Kurbanova from Azerbaijan is really tough. She won an international tournament. She's medaled in everything, and she's really I think she's personally coached by Asgarov. I mean, she follows her around at a tournament. Like Mikhail was going to wrestle her. She was like, because probably pretty good because Asgarov, who's an Olympic champion, is following her around the whole day. And then she'd be Tatiana Kitt, she'd be Mikhail. She won the tournament, so she's really good. It's going to be a tough weight class. Draw will matter, but let's see where Krazer is. I mean, obviously she showed that she can, be competitive with anybody based on her performance last time, and this will be a good benchmark to see her consistency and how she does, just looking at the weights, it's one of the tougher weights just because I know who some of the people are as opposed to, some of the other names may have like accolades as cadets, but we're talking about people that have like accolades as seniors.
Final two, Abbi Cooper and Carissa Qureshi. Qureshi going to North Central, so Joe Norton continues to add to that #1 recruiting class. Qureshi filling in for Loriana Paestawa, who got injured, so she's filling in. Qureshi actually beat Leydecker to make the U20 team the year before. Yeah. So she's right there. I think if she has the right tournament, she could possibly do some things. Not sure what her training situation has been. And then Abbi Cooper actually lost a match at the national duels over the summer. So this is her chance for a little bit of a redemption. But those would probably be the two question marks I would have going into this. So it really is a mixed team of, I think, some proven results, but then some question marks. And how is this going to turn out?
Yeah, I mean, when we say question marks, I think it's more inconsistencies than ability. Because we are now at the point, I'll say this, I'll make this statement for the U.S. You got to be good to make a world team, flat out. I don't care what the age group is. It's not like random. It's a gauntlet. These are deep tournaments, and they're good tournaments. Can some ways be weaker than others? Absolutely. Qureshi, as you said, she beat Leydecker. I mean, that I'm still perplexed. If you just look on paper, that's a perplexing, result. But she beat her, 2 matches to make the world team. So, she's there. I mean, whether she's maybe had some moments of inconsistency, perhaps, but as you gain experience, you become more consistent, ideally, and you're good to make this team. And some of them, maybe this is a chance for some of the names that we're not highlighting to what we call the top people to prove themselves, and then we'll be talking about them on the next show. I mean, everybody on this team is good, but you know what? Especially in women's wrestling, has changed. The world is good. Every country is sending. Think about this. I always say this to people, pretty much within reason, everybody is sending the best person in their country at that weight class at that age. So, and they want it too, and they train hard too. I mean, I think we have a great system as a country. We have great athletes. We have a big country, and we're advanced in terms of, technique and stuff, and women's wrestling is growing. So, we can go with anybody, but so can many of these other countries, in varying degrees. And, this I don't know if what was planned or not, if that was the best U17 or not, and if changes are made, but I'm sure Japan didn't like, taking 30 U17s, and they look like they have a really solid team.